Conversation with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In Podcast. This is Max Rabin.
And I am Brent Jackson.
Brent, we've had a little hiatus here, but I'm glad that we're recording a new show, especially given all the news that's come out about realtors.
A little bit of news, yes. There is some new news.
Today our guest is Jen Touchette from Compass Real Estate here in Washington, D.C. What's up, Jen?
Hi, guys.
Welcome
nice to
back.
be here. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Jen was on before with her husband, Tim, who has a very cool property management business in D.C. They do short-term and corporate rentals. They're one of the only businesses in town that does that kind of stuff. So Jen's here herself today. Jen is a super successful realtor in Washington, D.C. She is part of you're with the Partners group.
Yes, your partners, yes.
Partners. And tell us, just so we know who you are, like tell us about your volume and like what you guys are doing business-wise. So our audience knows you're legit, because you are.
Well, and you know Meredith is listening. So, so I am on a team of 8 women. We're full-time agents. We run it like a business. We're licensed in the DMV. Last year, 2 years ago, we did $222 million. Last year, we had an adjustment. We were around 180.
Yeah, I think everyone had an adjustment.
Yes, I'm calling it an adjustment.
That's not a bad adjustment.
That's not bad, though. Right? That's not
220
much.
to 180.
Yeah.
Thank you. We worked diligently to get there, so we felt good about the number. So we landed there, which put us the number 2 team at Compass, which is the number 1 broker in DC, Meredith.
We're number 1 in nationwide now, right?
We have the most agents. Yep, I think we're around 32,000. So
Right.
the number 1 independent brokerage. So, and we employ 3 admin full time on the back end. We have a director of operations. Somebody who handles listings, and then somebody who does contracts to close.
Yeah.
Who does your marketing then?
So that would be Jamie, who handles our social media. So she is she's full time.
Is that listing coordinator person?
No, sorry. So she is one of our 3. So we have Melissa, director of operations. Then we have Julianne, who does contracts. Melissa handles a lot of once we actually go under contract. Sorry,
Okay.
Julianne is listings. And then Jamie helps with social media.
Got it.
So 2 years ago, I did 35 million. Last year, I did 30.
Mm-hmm. That's still excellent volume for any single agent, whether working on a team or not. That's like upper echelon here in DC.
Yeah,
Good stuff.
Thanks.
20 million's you're out of the gate there.
Is it?
That's your
Well, my
above or
team,
below.
they tease me because I'm from Wisconsin. That's why I'm short sleeve when it's freezing cold out. And I'm a fourth quarter girl. So
You're a
I
cheesehead.
think I was sitting at 20 million in September
20.
and then gave myself a little pep talk.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, game on. So
Wow.
I was fortunate. I had a good fourth quarter that brought it home, but I
Nice.
hustled. I was nervous. It's like, I got to get there. So
Can you go backwards? So you were with Attache. I don't know if you still are doing any work, but like, how did you come to Compass and your group?
And Attache is your family's property management business.
yes.
Right.
So Tim Touchette,
Mhm.
right. My husband runs Stay Attache. So they do furnished corporate housing. They're kind of a hotel alternative,
Mhm.
right? So we're in State Department, DOJ, IMF, et cetera. So
Real quick, did you guys get any pushback from like DC with the short-term housing? Did you guys have to rework some of your plans?
So Tim didn't. He really handles that part, right? Because I'm at Compass. He didn't, but he watched it very closely.
Right.
So they do monthly minimums.
Mm.
No night
it.
and weekly, no Airbnb,
Oh, I see.
and
Okay.
that way he's compliant.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Sorry.
So yeah. So I used to be a standalone agent. We created a brokerage. I can't remember now. Attache Properties maybe. And my uncle Jim in Herndon, Virginia, was my broker. So it was a standalone.
Mhm.
And he was great. It was wonderful, but I kind of maxed out, right? If I was out of town, he's not coming in from Herndon to work an open house for me. So in 2018, I started chatting with Meredith Margolis, who's a neighbor and friend, and I started interviewing with some teams. Brent, I know I talked to you all.
Yep.
And a
We
couple
missed out.
other teams at Compass. I love you guys. Best team to do deals with. So easy. And so I just figured I kind of plugged in the best with Meredith and her team. And at that point, we were 6, and now we're 8. So I
Mhm.
think still small but mighty. And then, yeah, so 6 years now I've been with them. But the collaboration, I mean, you all know,
Yeah.
to be part of a team and a brokerage that has a name,
Yeah.
that certainly helped me on the listing side, for sure.
So coming right out of the gate, 2018, you're coming from corporate rentals. Can you tell us like your first year in the business, like how much volume you did and where the deals were coming from?
I think the first year I did maybe 8 million in 2018. And I remember Meredith kind of giving me a little pep talk at some point. She's like, listen, we hired you because she was very direct. She's like, we hired you and, to bring the business up. We didn't hire you to be an $8 million agent. So I kind of was like, whew, okay. But I needed to hear it. I love to travel. Our whole family has a sense of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized back then I was making work fit in with travel versus the other way around. I really wasn't making it the focus and the priority and then traveling later. I was pretending I was a 30, 40, $50 million agent, and I wasn't. So that woke me up a little bit, and I hustled. So I did 8, then maybe 12, 5, or 13, then 19, 28, 35, 30.
So okay, so you're saying like you switched your mindset from being like I'm a person who likes to travel, who also does real estate, to vice versa. Can you give us like a few of the things, the extra things that you had to do and the way you had to spend your time to make sure that you were going to have enough volume to like continue to grow? Like what else were you doing?
Right. Well, first of all, COVID was a blessing
Mhm.
because we all traveled less. And so once that happened, I simply just traveled less and focused. But I started with the 6 a.m.ers at Compass, right? I'm a morning person. Got up on the 5 o'clock hour, dialed in. The 6 a.m.ers is a wonderful format, 5 days a week, but 2 days a week we have speakers, and this gentleman, Sky Michaels, leads it, and it's from 6 to 7 in the morning. And so we do a quick 1-minute breathing. He has a speaker. We talk about the market, and then we move on with our day at 7. So I think that got me going with morning discipline, and then do not disturb till 9:30 in the morning, hit the gym, try to write 2 thank you notes a day. You guys have heard of Ninja.
Yeah, Ninja, sure.
Love Ninja. So, and really it was Ninja that got me going,
Okay.
right? I took that 3-day intensive course and realized I'm basically not doing any of the right things. I was letting life kind of happen versus every morning waking up and saying 2 thank you notes, 5 calls, workout, phone off, that
Right.
sort of thing. The
Sure.
things we all know, but we don't always do.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for me, and this we can segue into like what's going on in the industry right now. For me, I go into these like ebb and flow cycles, and I think COVID, we couldn't have been better set up, age group wise, and with the track record of business behind us to take that moment and really excel, right, and ride with it and maximize that as realtors in this city with all that was going on. After COVID, interest rates go up, right? Inventory slowed down a lot at the end of 23 especially. And now we have the NAR settlement that is like kind of hit the news like a freight train. And it's just basically right now we're still in this like limbo world. It's a little confusing as to what is next in terms of how we're going to display commissions that may be offered to cooperating brokers, or what are we going to do, a fee-based model, or who's going to do what, or will who knows, right? And so for me, like I've actually like ebbed away from like my daily routine as well. Not saying as well, but like lately, I'm more in like I'm a person who leisurely plays tennis and does stuff with my kids, and then like if there's work stuff too, I'll get to that because it's just like my attitude is just it's tough. It's gotten tougher. I don't know. So
Yes.
it's hard to flip that switch back on right now at this moment. Although I'm starting to come back around to it because there is more stuff happening, and it's kind of like it's like, then I get on automatic pilot as things
Right.
start to come back in.
Right.
I
hear that. I mean, I was at the gym that morning and, had my phone down, came out of the gym, saw the New York Times headline, rates, commission /6%. And I thought, oh,
Right.
slashed.
Yeah.
Right? Like I felt the media did not get it right out
Totally.
of the gate. And, you know, so that was kind of, so there's been a lot of explaining, right? I've probably had 10, 12 clients reach out. And I do find once we have the conversation, and I'm happy to share with you all how I kind of have that
I'd love to hear it.
conversation because I think it's important with our industry, right? So I'll just say, listen, this was a case in Kansas City about a group of sellers who felt they did not have a choice. And the attorney went after NAR, represented them, and he won. And it was made up of a jury of all renters, people who had never bought or sold, so didn't necessarily understand the process. And DC is a fee-for-service market. You pay for doctors, you pay for lawyers. We are 100% commission. We hustle, right? We all have to eat. We have families. And, so this is about helping people find their dream. And I say to people, listen, you're probably going to do this only a couple times in your lifetime. You want representation. Washington, D.C. is really competitive. My broker takes 3%, and it's up to you what you want to pay the buyer's agent. I would suggest 2.5, 2.75, 3. It's always nice to match it, but it's up to you. What would you like to do? And then it's transparent, it's out, and we have the conversation. So I like to get 6%. I believe in paying the other side matching. I really do. Unless I have a listing that I'm doing a ton of work, and then I might take 3.5, 2.5. Repeat clients, maybe family, I might do 2.5, but like right now I have 3 or 4 listings. They're all 6%.
That's good.
I would say I wanted to I pulled out this article from the New York Times. This was actually from the other day. It was about the people who were in the lawsuit, the plaintiffs, so to speak. And the house, I'll read a little bit. The house was a second home. She and her husband, Scott Burnett, had purchased a 3-bedroom house in Kansas City's Hyde Park for their oldest son to live in after he was accepted to law school in Kansas City in 2008. So it's these people are experienced people. This is a second home. And then it goes on to say that her real estate agent presented her with a form that detailed how much commission they would pay with choices in 4 boxes: 6%, 7%, 8%, or 9%. Here are your 4 choices.
Wow.
And so in DC, we're the most lawyered up area of the entire country.
Right.
Our forms have been poured over and changed around so many times. I mean, there could never be anything like this put out by our local association, where it would be just written in a checkbox, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I feel like it will all shake down the way it's supposed to shake down eventually.
Yes.
No matter where we are.
Yes.
But it just seems like a lot of these other jurisdictions and these other associations were doing things just very, very differently from what we're used to here, right?
Absolutely.
We're in three different jurisdictions as well. So you think across the country, every time I do a Maryland or Virginia deal, I'm like, oh my God, there's so many forms,
Yes.
different
Sure.
forms. And it's if you think about going into Kansas City, West Virginia, California, New York, all these states, all these different jurisdictions have
Yes.
different forms. Some have 20 pages, some have 40, some will have a front and back page, and that's it.
Right.
And it's probably multiple choice: 6, 7, 8, or 9.
6, 7, 8, or 9.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have the onus is definitely on listing agents, right? I feel a greater responsibility now to have a thoughtful conversation with the seller and really look out for the buyer's agent, right? I mean, our job is to sell your home for the most amount of money in the least amount of days. And you really do want a buyer to have representation. They're going to guide them, excuse me, they're going to bring them through. There's all kinds of nuances, right? And I feel like our industry has done a disservice explaining the process, right? It's all
Sure.
the highlights on Instagram of 4 offers, yay, we're done, we close in 2 weeks. And shows like Selling Sunset, which I may or may not have watched because it's kind of fun candy. But obviously that is not the reality of the business. It's not.
That's I had a list of different things I was going to rant about today, so that was right on there.
We can rant.
I mean, okay, all right. here was number 4. All right. Realtors come across as spoiled assholes in the media. Okay. You think about like the people who have become stars through shows like Selling Sunset or $1 Million Listing. Like, I enjoy Ryan Serhant as an example. I'm not going to say anything about Ryan Serhant. I find him entertaining. I know he's a good broker, et cetera, et cetera. But it's like the in-your-face-ism of real estate. It puts people on their heels a little bit because they're seeing money that is it's like funny money. It's fake world money. And that's what sells. That's what is sensational.
Yes.
And they look at our industry this way.
Yes.
And then you throw into that the mixture of super low interest rates from the pandemic, which accelerated prices like crazy, with mixed with low inventory and multiple offers, pushed prices a lot to where we are now.
Yes.
And people think we make money for literally doing nothing, and it's not the case. I mean, I stupidly went on a comment section of the Wall Street Journal the other day after reading one of these articles, and I just had to like put my 2 cents out there, and it was like this. It's like there are times when we are working with a buyer, and we will show a house or a couple of houses to a buyer who's come to DC or someone else who wants to move up or whatever, and we're able to get the contract done quickly and earn anywhere from 2.5% to 3% commission, which was sort of what was offered, for many years. It's the common rate, and that commission could be earned in as little as like a couple weeks to a month of working with this buyer. For every deal that happens like that, as we all know, how many buyers have you been with where you've worked with them for years and not found something for them? Or you've written 4 or 5 offers for buyers and they've come in 2nd out of 12 or 4th out of 21.
Right.
And it's like all of the work
true.
that was done to be in practice and to know how to do all of that stuff and get better at what you're doing and hone your craft, where there wasn't money earned on that deal. Then it's like the deals that are easier to, in my mind, it's not like they make up for it, but that is what you earn to do this business.
Yes.
And if you can if you're fortunate enough to get like 3 good ones in a row, you feel like you hit the lottery.
Yes.
Right? But it's not always like that.
It's so true. Some people, it takes 2 houses. Some, it's 48, right? And also, we don't get paid until we're at the finish line.
Absolutely.
Right?
Real quick, I'm just curious because I love reading the comments in the Wall Street Journal and these other publications. What did people say to your response?
There were some people who were, I don't know if there are other realtors on there going like, amen, or who's commenting. But there are definitely plenty of people. And I like our engineer producer here at the studio. I was talking to him about going on comment boards. He's like, I don't do comments. We don't read comments. We don't want the negativity because it's like it's overwhelmingly negative. They're out to attack us.
Right.
And
as soon as you post something, they're going to attack you. So it's kind of like then you start in a cat and mouse going back and forth.
That's when I go like, I'm going to make this comment. I might reply. I might check once. But I'm not going to make it my life,
No.
You got to move on.
I don't know if you saw Holly Worthington, our principal broker, who's awesome. She wrote in last week on the op-ed for the Washington Post. And there were a couple of comments and a couple other people who also wrote. But, nobody's really talking about, first of all, the lawyers took 1/3, right? So 30 million, whatever that, nobody talks about that.
No one talks about that. They made out amazingly.
Like bandits, right?
Yeah.
And, that's their job, et cetera. But I also don't feel like the media is talking enough about folks who don't have means, because those are the people who are really going to be hurt, right? VA loan, FHA loan. I mean, imagine having to make a decision. Do I pay my buyer or do I get the house? And then, by the way, you may not get that house if you don't have really good representation.
Right. If you try to go directly to the listing agent doesn't have time for you.
Right.
Like they don't want to deal with a VA buyer.
Right.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I imagine maybe that will be another class action suit. Who knows? But that just seems grossly unfair.
You think the banks would have to figure it out on the back end as
Yes.
well?
Sure. There's plenty of stuff going on in the background that we're not
Appraisals,
aware of. Yeah.
Right? No.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, I'm really not overly worried about it. I think because I have now had 12 conversations. And at least what I find is that I had one yesterday at the gym. A client and I take a class together, and he's like, hey, I read something about this lawsuit. I hear confusion from clients, and they want to understand. So I give a version of the rollout I gave to you all, and then we talk about it. They say, oh, okay, good. We just want to make sure you were okay. And that makes sense. And it's a little bit of a time suck, though, right? For our profession. I mean, this is just where we are
Right.
now, and that's fine. And I think we all are going to have to elevate our value and our brand. Um,
Okay. Can I? Sorry.
Yeah,
Mike.
no, it's going. I mean, like, but it's coming down the pipeline, right? And you guys might disagree, but sometime after July, it could be like a day after or a year later, you're going to be presented in front of a seller that doesn't care about your pitch, which is really great. But they're going to say, "I've got this property. It's going to sell quickly. I'm a realistic seller because I want to
mhm.
move it. I will pay you 3%. I am not paying the buyer agent. Do you want the listing? Yes or no?"
Thank you, Brent. Thank you for the meeting.
Here
I'm
we
out of
go.
here. No,
I mean, I gotta run.
I am
I
not your agent.
I love the role play. I think we have to
Yeah.
talk about that. I think I would say to you, you know what? That's your choice, and that's fine. Let's talk a little bit about how that might play out. And then I think we would have a pricing conversation. We would talk about the fact that a buyer may write it into the contract, right? To ask the seller to pay their commission. They can't pay the buyer's agent or ask the buyer's agent, but they might have you, Brent, pay for it. So that might be wrapped into the price. Will it appraise? Will it not appraise? You're not going to get as many people through your home. What is your carry cost? Are you okay? Like average days on market, making this up, are 12 days in Rockville where you're selling. It might take 3 times as long because you're not going to have agents coming through. Also, if we do get a contract with a buyer who's unrepresented, I'm going to take a guess, it could fall through, right? We don't know. I'm not working for them. I work for you. I represent your interests. I don't know. You really want somebody on the other side. This is a big, big purchase. Selling, whatever.
Well,
What do you think, Brent? 6%?
I think it's interesting. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride, my opinion, bumpy ride for a couple of months or a year. I think that we're leaning towards, and again, it could be a year or 2 years down the road, the buyer's going to pay for the representation, the seller's going to pay for the representation. There's going to be a clean division in that. It's like the commercial world. I was with 2 commercial brokers and a commercial buyer last night at the basketball game. And they're all like, this is how it's been since we've been doing business.
Sure.
One guy was telling me
Right.
he negotiated a $20 million industrial place. And during the whole time negotiating with his client, the buyer and the seller, he was also negotiating the fee between the buyer and the seller. And the seller ended up giving him 2% and the buyer gave him 1%. It wasn't disclosed anywhere. He didn't have a buyer agency agreement. I don't even know if they had that in commercial, but it wasn't disclosed he was getting. So he's negotiating on behalf of the buyer a $20 million deal. And in coincidence with his fee as well, with both
Yeah.
sides.
Holly talks a lot about the commercial side of real estate, right? And that's what they've been doing.
Right.
And we're also lucky. I think we're one of 14 states that has buyer agency agreements in place.
Right.
Like New York, Florida. I mean, this is a whole new conversation for them. We're shifting the narrative, Brent, I think to your point.
Right.
And, the buyer, right, they're probably going to pay one way or the other. So,
I can't remember in New York. We bought a few places up there, but I know for a fact when we've rented in New York, we would pay our renter fee. Like the agent we would pay him the fee, and then the listing or the owner would pay their leasing agent the fee. It's like if we were paying $5,000 a month for rent, we would give the renter agent $5,000 as a renter, and then the landlord would pay their agent
Right.
$5,000. So I think that's going to be the division. And then on that same token, it's like you can still ask the seller to pay for the commission. Like we've been doing it for a while. Like in the rare occasion we have something below 3%, there are agents out there that will put in their offer the seller to pay the difference
Right.
on the fee.
right.
So I
Seen
think that'll be the new norm of I'm presenting you, Mr. Seller, with an offer, or Mrs. Seller with an offer, but I want you to pay me X amount of dollars.
Right. I don't know how you all feel about this, but you obviously work for a very reputable brokerage. I do. This is a very sophisticated market in the DMV. There have always been third party, right, folks who are going to come in. I worry about them discounting.
Yeah.
I don't worry about most of the agents. This is our profession, right? We run it like a business. And, all these nuances that we navigate, right? Historical, landmarks. You've got radon, lead paint, all kinds of. We're privy to numbers. It's a very intimate process, right?
Mhm.
We work with people who are divorced, who maybe have kids still staying at home, moving. We've witnessed tears, like all of this, and I had a settlement a couple months ago in Georgetown, and I met the agent, Washington Fine. Great agent, and we're there for the walkthrough. Should be a half hour, right? I'm literally like planning brunch with friends. We get in there, and I represent the buyers. The sellers, lovely sellers, but they had not really cleaned up. It was not free of debris. And we spent 90 minutes, like hair in a bun, trash bags.
Wow.
She ran home. We just went cupboard to cupboard, and we worked together. Like, these are the unsexy things you're not seeing on Selling Sunset. And it happened. We just did it. We laughed about it. We got through it, right? It was fine.
But I also, so going back to like these comments and stuff that people make, and I'm not saying I don't believe them, but you hear a lot of people are like, well, I've sold 3 houses on my own and I didn't need a realtor and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, everyone's situation is not the same as yours, whoever this person may be.
Yes.
Right? I mean, if Brent was doing something else other than real estate, I'm sure he would be very busy doing that as well, and too engaged to be like, okay, now I got to get home and make sure all the lights are on, to sell my
Yes.
house myself. No, he's busy at his job, like, so he can earn the money that it takes to pay for such a place.
Yes.
So why would you want to also be doing that job for yourself too? Some people have the time. Maybe they want to do it. Maybe some attorneys, like, they're like, I can do this. It's no big deal.
Right.
But yet we still have plenty of attorneys as clients.
I think that's a really, really good point. Years ago, I went for a listing over on the Hill, and I didn't get it. And it was an Army lieutenant's wife. And she had done 4 houses on her own, and she ended up just selling it by herself. And you know what? Good for her. And she knew enough, and she did well. And
She
it was
probably a
fine.
pretty
I got
organized
it,
person.
right?
Yeah.
I understood that.
I find that clientele to be fascinating because I've ran into a few of those as well, where either they will sell it by themselves, or it's like so minimalist because they move. They move like so frequently. Like, I'm selling their 20th house in
Yes.
20 years, and it's like they know exactly what to do. They don't need the stager. They take all the advice. But one thing you picked up on is, or that you mentioned, it's like telling the stories to the buyer, I think, is going to go a long way. Like, for me, an example, a couple of years ago, we did a walkthrough. We represented a buyer. Washington Fine Property was the listing agent. Everything went very smooth. But at the final walkthrough, we were going into the closing. The seller took the chandelier out of the dining room. And our buyer was a professional litigator, big attorney. And he would not close until he got $50,000 credit. And the listing agent was floored. She's like, I've never, 40 years had anyone ask for $50,000 for a chandelier. And his rationale was, I'm going to spend $10,000 to $20,000 on the chandelier. My interior designer, the time put into that, I want $50,000. We held up closing for 3 days, and he got to $50,000.
Wow.
But that's something that a flat fee broker or a Redfin agent isn't going to do.
That's just going to sink a deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good story. By the way, you didn't ask me this, but I am not into the flat fee
Okay.
at all. I like the percentage.
So a flat fee for what? I mean, like for a
A
listing
buyer,
thing,
right?
for a buyer?
Yes. I mean, either side, but buyer side.
Okay.
Right.
Because I could see that being the new norm, right? It's like, again, I'm not saying I'm for it or against it, but I can see it being the new norm where a sophisticated buyer, they know what they want. It's their 4th purchase. They call Redfin or whoever. They call the listing agent. They show them the property, and then they call whatever flat fee company, could be a title attorney, draft up the offer, and then I'm going to negotiate on my behalf, like $2,500 flat fee for this $2 million property.
See, I don't, not agreeing or disagreeing either. I would say, like, when you think about doing business that way, okay, and again, you have to think about how many sides you need to turn to make what is a passable income in this area, okay? Not like super realtors, Brent and Jen, okay? And me.
And Max.
Okay.
And Max.
But we keep talking about this, and it's like the average realtor makes like what? I don't even know what they make, like $50,000 a year if you
like
go
40,
around.
right?
The bar to get in is so low. And I think, frankly, a lot of people do it part-time. And I understand that getting started, right? I mean, we're commission-based for the most part. But the bar to get in is low,
Sure.
It's too low, yeah.
I think.
Okay. Someone did say that in another podcast I was listening to recently, another real estate podcast, and they were talking about, in X amount of weeks, you can have you don't have to have a high school degree, I don't think, right? You can just go and get your license, and now you're a realtor and you're out like taking listings and whatever. If they made it like a 4-year program, there would be a lot less realtors. I'm not saying that the job requires 4 years of study, but I mean, if they're concerned that there's this much money in the pool for this industry, then they could make it more of a protected industry in terms of education if they're really interested in protecting the consumer.
That's a great point. Sure. I hope I don't have to go back to school.
You probably grandfathered in. I mean, you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, COVID was a blessing, which I never heard, but you're absolutely right. You could also look at this as being a blessing in disguise, because I've heard from like new agents that just got in after the COVID bubble to veteran agents that have been doing it for like 30, 40 years. They're like, it's too much. And if things do change, they're predicting that half the industry leaves.
Sure.
So like the strong will survive and then they'll thrive as well. So it's like, could this also be a blessing in disguise, where I think I read an article where in the height of the pandemic bubble, there were more agents than there were homes on the market, which is crazy.
Right.
Wow.
Oh, there absolutely are.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good point, and Holly has touched on that as well. What was it last year? 60, 70,000 agents went bye-bye. I don't know. Leonard Steinberg at Compass rattled off a statistic, and it just kind of, right?
I know plenty of agents who have been in the business a long time, and like, last year was a struggle. They didn't close anything for many months.
Yes, last year was tough.
You know?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Except for your group.
Yeah, not you.
Fourth quarter girl.
Right. It is a capitalist economy. It is okay. Like, you're supposed to work harder and earn more. It's fine. One other piece to my rant that going back to something you said also was, and I loved what you said also about like, explaining the value, explaining it is what it is that we do. But part of me also, it's like, going about my business, I think when the first wave of stuff happened, where the first settlements occurred, I think like a couple of the major corporations settled out of court, and then the NAR thing was still ongoing, and then boom, the headline hits. Because I had already had this feeling of like, what is it that we do? Like, does anyone like us? Does anyone want us to do this job? And then when the settlement hit, I was like, oh, here we go again. And for the last, I don't know how many years since the media uptick with real estate and the social media and the technology and everything, there's always another app and another thing to learn. My attitude was like, okay, so now we have to learn how to explain our value more than ever, right? We have to work harder than we worked before. And I have no idea how the compensation is going to work, because we haven't figured that out yet. And it's like, what? It's just annoying. It just annoys the shit out of me. I don't even know how else to put it.
I'm like, yes, and yes.
Yeah, this is my rant moment. Sorry.
Max, you might need to bow out of the industry and start referring to Brent and I.
Right. And I can just be on the tennis court like, Brent, got another one. Bye. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of agents, I think, will do that. It's just like, there's agents that have been doing that for years with us. It's like they won't go, east of Connecticut, east of 14th. They're going to stay up in their little perched upper Northwest, and it's like, hey, I got another one for you. And it's like, all right, that's great. Like, I want to get to that age as well, where it's like I'm just punting leads here and there, and I'm not leaving the tennis court, basketball court, whatever, and I'm still getting paid to do it.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think it's having the conversation. I guess I've taken a little more confidence each time I've had the conversation and explained it, because I am finding people I speak with are hungry for information. They want to understand it. They're confused by the headlines.
Yeah.
I'm confused by the NAR. They're supposed to fight for us. I think while I was reading one of the articles, like, this was one of the only ways they could move forward without filing for bankruptcy. And I'm thinking, like, where are we going to be in 2 years? Is NAR still going to be around? Are we going to be owned by some other affiliation? I think from, again, my recollection, it's most of these big companies, Anywhere, Compass, Redfin, they pulled out of NAR. So, like,
I hear you. So I have a question for both of you. Do you think the NAR is a cartel?
Oh, didn't expect that question.
Because smarter minds than mine have said this, that the cartel needs to be broken up. They've used the word cartel. What do you think?
In that regard, yes. I think NAR will be defunct in 2 years.
You do?
Yep.
I had not heard the word cartel, but
And not me neither.
It fits the definition in some ways if you look at it that way.
right. I mean, I think a lot of us are scratching our heads out loud, like, okay, what are we paying for? What do
Right.
we get? Why did they really let us down when, frankly, we needed them the most? The other attorneys did a better job. That's why they won.
Hmm.
Better witnesses, etc. So I don't know. 2 years. Should we put a $5 bet on that?
$5 bet. There'll be a unicorn that comes in and takes over the entire industry, whoever that is.
Okay.
Could be Zillow, could be Compass, could be anywhere.
Mauricio Amansky, right? He
Yeah.
has this like the American real estate, some new association that he's come up
Oh
with.
yeah,
right?
that's the guy from California, right?
Yeah, he's one of the like
Okay.
selling
TV guys,
sunset guys, I
yeah.
think.
Huh.
He brought that up at Inman last year, before all this.
There'll be a unicorn that comes in. That's my
Okay.
prediction. 2 years, and again, prediction's sure to go wrong. Everyone's got one, and no one's got the right one. So
We'll remember this.
Do you think our industry needs a nationwide association as a trade group, or do you think we can just all go operate on our own?
I don't know. I feel like there's a shakeup certainly right now. I mean, sometimes we get so in our bubble locally, right, with
Sure.
GCAR and local associations. I don't know, honestly. I'd like to say sure we need it, but I frankly don't know enough to know if we do. Maybe we don't. Maybe it's enough to have a strong local, regional organization.
Right.
The
With
DMV is so
standards.
special,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
Mhm.
it's so different. Certainly in New York, you have the tri-state, but
the jurisdictions themselves are so different. It's like, yes, you could have a governing body or big brother to kind of oversee the entire industry, but it's like we've seen that they've failed on on a massive
The
stage.
massive scale, right?
Right. They failed us as agents. So it's like I don't know. that
I
we
have
need it.
never, I imagine you all feel like this, but like Holly, our principal broker, I have never been more grateful to have the leadership at the top,
Mhm.
right? She has a sales meeting today and she'll just get in there and she fights for us.
Right.
And she's very earnest about here's how I see it, here's how I believe, what I believe in. And she has our back. And I'm sure you all feel the same way at your brokerage. I mean, it's
Yeah, our
really
broker partners
important.
jumped right on it, and they're hearing us, and they're out there,
They're great. I
got-
mean, like
yeah.
our leadership team has been great. We've been on Zoom calls, face-to-face meetings. I see your CEO. He's always on Instagram posting like the worth of a buyer agent. I mean, I think leadership across the board with all these firms, all these companies have done a tremendous job explaining why it is that we should be compensated on both sides of the transaction.
Yes. And as I mentioned again, because I think it's worth repeating twice, I do think the responsibility is on us to elevate our brand and have more context and substance and really explain what we do. We have a
Right.
list of like 179 things, right, that realtors do. But how often do we talk about them? We probably don't. We just do them and then it's all shiny. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I try to be like very involved with like the minutia with all these clients because I've gotten that feedback before. It's like we didn't know what was happening. It's like, well, you didn't ask. Well, that's not the appropriate answer.
Right.
So I'm just more like,
Right.
this is what happened today. Okay, like the termite inspector went out, like little things,
Yes.
because people don't think they don't think about it. They just like they sign a contract, they're waiting for closing. Like, what's happening? My lender asked me for 10 more documents, but they don't really know all the other stuff that's happening. So,
I think that's right.
yeah,
And that's on us.
totally. All right. Well, we talked about that quite a bit.
Lots
Good
to
job.
say.
Good job.
There's a
Now,
lot to say.
Brent, did you have something more controversial you wanted to?
I mean, like I think I mentioned it. Like I think in whatever time frame, the end result of this entire falling out will be that the buyer pays for the representation, seller pays for the representation.
Okay.
It could be that the buyer representation, as the example I mentioned earlier, where the commercial broker had to fight during the transaction, going back and forth on the terms with the buyer and the seller, but also with the buyer and the seller to get his compensation. I think it'll be some sort of regard on that, where the listing agent is negotiating their fee at the listing presentation to get whatever dollar amount, and then if you do have a buyer bringing it to the seller, if you don't have a buyer agency agreement where the buyer is willing to pay X amount of dollars, then you're going to be presenting an offer to that seller for compensation as well. I think we're going to get there. It's just a matter of when. It's controversial or not, but it's like everybody I listen to in the industry locally and across the board, it's like it's one extreme or the other. It's like the extreme I just mentioned, or things are going to be the same. They're not going to change at all, which I don't think is going to happen. I don't think January 1st of 2025 is going to be the same way we're doing business January 2024.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, I think there was value in this conversation, even though we're still in limbo. I think the first time we talked about it, which was maybe like the last time we did an episode, was a little while ago, but it was after those original settlements, and it was before the bigger settlement.
Right.
So, and we were like, what do we know? We're still in sort of like, what do we know land? But I think it's helpful for us because we are all so involved in our business, and like this is really what we do, that we think about it, talk about it. I mean, it's like the hot topic. It's what it is, you know.
Yes.
And overarching theme here is the media completely fucked it up. Okay, like the headlines that are coming out make no sense. It's like no one did any research, and then the next guy said, "Yeah, I'll take that headline too," and it makes
Yes.
none of it makes any sense.
You've got, they're paid subscriptions, right? So the more clickbait, the better it is.
Yes.
You can't have a boring
Yes.
Yeah, like
headline out there.
realtors cut commissions. Like that's the
Yes.
headline. It's like,
Clickbait.
huh?
Sensationalized. 100%.
Yeah.
Circling back like to your groups, I mean, this is
Yeah.
a hot topic. I'm assuming you guys are meeting weekly, bi-weekly. Are you guys having this discussion? Are you guys role-playing in your meetings? Like, how do these...
Sure. We have a round robin every Monday, 1 to 2. We're up at our Chevy Chase office. And again, there are 8 of us, and we touch a lot of clients. So we're kind of our own focus group. So we run around and talk about business, and then we have conversations about conversations we have had about the lawsuit, and we learn from each other. I don't know that we've role played, but we have talked about role playing. And I've noticed on Instagram a bunch of agents, not myself, but who have gone on and had videos, really compelling videos explaining it, sitting like this, right, in their family room, and just saying, all right, guys, here's the deal. And I think those are helpful. I think that those can go viral.
Yeah.
And get the message out.
Anybody in your group have any like horror stories? Like they lost the listing because the seller wasn't willing to pay a commission or anything like that?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
It's interesting. Like we're doing a lot of developer work, and they're like, we're so excited for July 1st because we're going to be the ones paying a commission. And I'm like, just that mindset that they're thinking everybody else is going to stop paying commissions July 1st.
Yeah. Not yet. Ask me.
Yeah, we'll come back to July.
Come back to me
Right.
July 2nd.
All right, well, let's give a little more Jen Touchette value to our listeners. Now, when you were talking about going from being you're an $8 million agent to 12 and then beyond, can you give me like the top 3 best practices that you took on? I mean, I know like obviously we all agree like our COVID market helped us, right? We were just sort of like all we can do is work now. But what are your best practices? Like, what do you do? How do you maintain those relationships?
I would tell every agent who is getting into the business or has been in the business a while to take the Ninja program. I'm overdue to take it again. 3-day program. You can fly away and do it. You can do it here in DC. But that really set the course for me of those 2 thank you notes a day, 5 calls, your CRM, dialing in 50 touch points a week, which, by the way, one could be like at the grocery, the gym. So at first it seems daunting, but then when you break it down, you're like, I can do this. So number 1, Ninja. I mean, you've got to want it, right? It's like grit and the hustle. We're 100% commission. So I don't know. I like money. I don't make apologies for that. I'm money motivated because I think money buys freedom to be philanthropic, to save for education for our kids, to travel, that sort of thing.
Where did you do Ninja? Locally or outside?
I did it
locally.
locally, yes. Like
I've only
5
done
years
one.
ago.
I've only done one. I think I am due to do it again.
I'm totally due. Like, this is my year. It's in my business plan, but have I set it up? No. So
I like Ninja. I found myself, I do a lot of the stuff they teach. I was already practicing, like I think one of you guys mentioned earlier. I just didn't resonate with me. And then I went into Ninja with the wrong mindset because I was so busy with work. I think a person has to be ready and open and willing to learn and absorb all the information. Like I was slammed with work and family stuff. There was like kids stuff going on. I couldn't wait to get out of the room. So it's like, that was the wrong mindset for me to go into Ninja. But I do need to go back, and I would go somewhere afar. Like I wouldn't want to stay locally in DC. Like go 3 days to Vegas or Toronto, somewhere outside the DMV where you can also build some relationships.
I feel the exact same way. They had one in February I wanted to go to, but I was at the Sphere seeing you too.
Nice.
And
That's awesome,
it
by
was
the way.
it was so great.
Did you go to that?
I didn't go to YouTube, but I went to
awesome.
the Sphere. I was there last week, and
Nice.
like the whole
Nice.
light show is like, it's amazing.
Wow.
Nice. But there was one in Denver the same week, and I was like, I wish I could go to that. So I also am a fan of Steve Schul. He has not coached me personally, but I have sat in with a couple of other agents not on my team. And we did this last fall, like every Thursday, I think at 2:00. And we just listened. He had a 9-week workshop. And it was basically about us really tapping into the Compass CRM and having tasks, right? And what does that look like? And every day you're spending 30 minutes with it. He actually wants an hour. I think that's hard. I have not done that an hour, but 30 minutes is, great if I can do that every day.
Hmm.
Because then if I don't do it, I'm suddenly like, I have 204 tasks. Like, it's overwhelming, right? But if I just do a little bit each day. And Steve's thing, whether you like him or not, I kind of like what he says. You don't have to have 5,000 people in your CRM. Maybe you do, but really it's about quality, not quantity. Like if Max is my client, am I really engaging with you in a meaningful way? Or are you just on the list, right? And then, by the way, why are you going to work with me? You don't really know me. You're not invested, and I shouldn't be upset about that. So I've kind of pivoted a little bit to fewer people and taking care of them, and then seeing them refer me, then they refer you, and it's this domino effect. That's the hope.
It seems like that's a lot of industries because I came from pharmaceuticals, I came from financial planning, like right out of college. In both, I've been able to parlay that mindset into real estate, which is 80% of your business come from the top 20% of like your clientele. So like the other 80, so if you have 100 clients, like the 80, you need to do the cold touches, like how are you, like whatever. It's just a touch point. But those 20 people, you really got to hone in on like wine and dine, breakfast, lunches, dinners, gifts, all that stuff, because they're going to keep referring you people. They're going to keep doing business with you. So focus on, the top 20% of whatever your
Yeah.
quantity is there.
That's it. I mean, Stanton at our company recommended a book to us called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Sure.
Do you
Yep.
know it?
Yep.
Will, who started
Will
11
Guidara. Yeah.
Madison. Yeah. And it's good, right? I mean, it's all about this. You just take care of people and it will come back to you. Might take time, doesn't happen right away, but, and I've always believed in that. Under promise, over deliver. Like I said, I'm from the Midwest, Wisconsin, like hair in a bun, just take care of people. And it'll come back to you. People want to work with people they like.
Yeah.
Again and again.
Jen, thanks so much for coming on today
Thank you for having me.
on this extremely weird rainy day.
Pouring rain. April showers bring May flowers.
And pollen.
Yes.
Brent, you got some
And
rapid
pollen.
fire questions for Jen?
5 easy questions. What is your guilty pleasure?
So I love sushi and sake.
What's
Like,
your go-to sushi place?
I like Kaz for the food. I like, what is it, on 17th Street?
Oh, 17th and P, right? I
Yeah,
can't remember
17th and P,
Taco
the
or something.
Michelin rated
Yeah.
that I can't think of. They're really good. So I could have sushi and sake every day.
Awesome. What are you binge watching right now, if anything?
I just finished a couple months ago Righteous Gemstones, which is hilarious if you need to kind of check out and laugh, which we all need to laugh more. And now I'm watching this silly Death and Other Details. Mandy Patinkin from
Okay.
Homeland, who
Yeah.
I live and die for. It's
Yeah.
just kind of fun, silly. It's about a murder.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, escape.
What's your favorite hobby?
Well, I love tennis and golf, but it's probably travel.
Travel?
Yeah, I think so.
So follow-up question to that. What's your go-to vacation spot or your ideal vacation spot?
Well, I'd love to go to the Maldives. I have not been there yet, but I like a little bit as I get older, a little more adventure. My daughter and I are going to Paris in May. We're going to see Taylor Swift for
Wow.
Mother's Day, and she's graduating from high school. So that is kind of a huge gift all
Huge.
around.
So 2 of you going?
So,
or how many?
yes,
2.
yeah.
So sweet.
Mother,
Just curious
daughter.
because we're looking in Lisbon.
Yes.
We've been
Oh,
looking
fun.
for my daughter's birthday's 6, loves Taylor Swift, and we're looking
Okay.
in Lisbon. This is her birthday weekend, which
Yeah.
is Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
But it's like, so we want to be on the front row in the second deck, anywhere.
Okay.
We've been looking like Miami, all across the world.
Okay.
And it's like, they essentially start at like $3,000.
Yeah.
for one seat.
Wow. Okay, I'm feeling good.
Yeah,
I
you
love
gotta- I
think you
Lisbon
gotta
too.
do-
I love Europe, Greece. You asked my ideal. It's probably Greece. I'd love to go
Awesome.
to Greece for
Okay.
2 weeks, right?
Last question here. We know what your next concert is. What is your last concert?
Oh yes, I went to U2.
Was it
The
U2?
Sphere.
How was it?
Incredible. It was so.
Everyone who's seen that thought it was awesome.
It was great.
Yeah.
We were with friends.
missed
Some friends were like 400 levels, so they felt they were too high.
Mm.
We were lucky enough. It's like an extra $100, so we did 100 level. But you're definitely, you're looking up a little bit. But it is wild. I mean, I'm 50 years old, so I grew up with all this music. You know
Totally.
every song. They had a kick-ass DJ who started. He was in a car going through the people on the floor and just
Oh,
got
wow.
everybody going. But the graphics are incredible. I mean, you're completely transposed.
Yeah.
You forget where you are.
Yeah.
Where'd you stay when you were in Vegas?
So we were at the Palazzo,
Palazzo?
attached to the Venetian,
Yeah.
which I hadn't been to Vegas in years, and I get, gambling a couple $100. But you forget most New York restaurants, they have a major presence in Vegas.
Right.
So the food is legit
good,
good.
yeah.
I love food. And you can get a reservation. So that part was fun. So
Yeah. We just got back from Vegas. We had a blast. We were at the Wynn, great hotel. We went to the
Nice.
show at the Sphere, Michael Jackson and Shin Lim. But Vegas is amazing. And first time the kids went, like it's a kid place. You could
Yeah, it's
ton of
gonna be very
shows,
family-friendly.
shops.
right, there's shows for the kids. I've heard good things about the Wynn. I
Yeah.
haven't.
They're-
been
all
there.
those hotels
Wynn is
are
nice.
amazing. The facades are great. Awesome.
Jen, thanks for coming down.
Thank
Great
you
to
for
see
having
you.
me, guys.
Thank you,
It's
Jen.
always good to see you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.